In 2025, the world witnessed an extraordinary surge in political resignations, marking one of the most turbulent periods for global leadership in recent memory. From Asia to Europe and beyond, prime ministers and presidents stepped down or were forced out at a pace rarely seen before. Beneath the headlines, deeper forces were at play. Economic crises undermined public trust, corruption scandals shattered reputations, and a new generation of protesters demanded accountability and change. Fragile coalitions and fractured parliaments left many governments unable to respond effectively to mounting challenges. This wave of resignations reflects not just isolated incidents, but a broader crisis in modern leadership. As the pressures of a rapidly changing world intensify, the stability of political systems everywhere has come into question. In September 2025, Nepal was rocked by a political crisis that culminated in the resignation of Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli. The immediate trigger was his government's controversial social media ban, which ignited outrage among the country's youth. With unemployment among young people nearing 19% and long-standing grievances over corruption, frustration boiled over into the streets. More than 100,000 students participated in protests, marking what many described as Nepal's first digital generation revolution. The demonstrations were not just about internet freedom. They reflected deep-seated disillusionment with the government's inability to address economic and ethical challenges. Oli's departure underscored the growing power of youth movements and the impact of digital mobilization in shaping political outcomes. In 2025, Mongolia experienced unprecedented political upheaval, with two prime ministers resigning within just a few months. Luvsanam's Oyun Erdeni stepped down in June after corruption allegations surfaced, implicating his family in lavish spending. His successor, Zandan Shatar, was ousted in October following a no-confidence vote triggered by coal mining scandals. Mongolia's coal exports account for over 40% of its GDP, making the sector both an economic lifeline and a source of vulnerability. Years of corruption in coal mining quietly eroded public trust, fueling widespread discontent. These resignations highlight how resource wealth, when mismanaged, can destabilize governments and turn prosperity into a political curse. Japan experienced a major leadership shift in September 2025, when Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba resigned following a historic electoral defeat. The election saw voter turnout plummet to just 47%, a record low that signaled widespread public disengagement. Ishiba's approval rating had dropped to 23%, reflecting deep dissatisfaction with his administration and the broader political establishment. Analysts point to this resignation as more than just a response to losing an election. It highlights a growing crisis of faith in Japan's political system itself. The public's disillusionment with traditional parties and leadership has intensified, raising questions about the future direction of Japanese democracy. Ishiba's departure marks a turning point, underscoring the urgent need for political renewal and greater public trust. France faced an unprecedented legitimacy crisis in late 2025, triggered by the record-short tenure of Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu. Appointed in October, Lecornu resigned within days after his government failed to pass a budget, exposing deep fractures within the French Parliament. The inability to secure majority support was not just a procedural setback. It signaled the collapse of President Macron's coalition, which had been struggling to maintain unity. This political turmoil left France without a stable government, raising concerns about the country's ability to address pressing economic and social challenges. Analysts describe the situation as the worst crisis of legitimacy in 4 decades, with citizens and lawmakers alike questioning the effectiveness of the current political system. The events highlighted how fragile modern leadership can be when confronted with fragmented parliaments and eroding public trust. Yemen continues to grapple with deep instability, marked by years of civil war and a devastating humanitarian crisis. In May 2025, Prime Minister Ahmed bin Mubarak resigned, officially citing his inability to reshuffle the cabinet. However, the underlying reality is far more complex. With more than 24 million Yemenis in need of aid and the government controlling only fragmented portions of the country, effective governance has become nearly impossible. The ongoing conflict has left infrastructure in ruins and displaced millions, while rival factions vie for power. Mubarak's resignation underscores the immense challenges faced by leaders in a nation where war and humanitarian needs overshadow any political maneuvering. In August 2024, Bangladesh witnessed a pivotal moment as Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned in the wake of massive student-led protests. The unrest was sparked by long-standing frustration over job quotas, which reserved 56% of government positions for elites and ruling party allies, leaving millions of graduates without fair opportunities. With over 4 million unemployed graduates, the demonstrations quickly grew into a nationwide movement demanding transparency and equal access to jobs. The scale and intensity of the protests reflected a generational demand for fairness and reform, challenging entrenched systems of privilege. Hasina's resignation marked not only the end of her tenure, but also a turning point for Bangladesh, as young people asserted their voice in shaping the country's future. Following Rishi Sunak's resignation in the wake of the 2024 election, the United Kingdom entered a period of profound political upheaval. The Conservative Party suffered its worst defeat in nearly 2 centuries, securing only 121 seats out of 650, a record low that stunned both supporters and critics. This loss marked not just the end of Sunak's leadership, but the collapse of an entire political era for Britain's right wing. As the party grappled with its diminished influence, internal debates intensified over its future direction and core values. Analysts observed that the search for a new identity became a central challenge, with traditional platforms losing resonance among voters. Throughout 2025, the Conservative Party's struggle to redefine itself reflected broader questions about the role of conservatism in modern British society. Across continents, the wave of resignations in 2025 reveals a striking global pattern. Political leadership has become more vulnerable than ever before. Public anger, often fueled by economic hardship and corruption, has found new power through digital mobilization, allowing protests and dissent to spread rapidly. Fractured parliaments and coalition breakdowns have further exposed the fragility of modern governance. These events demonstrate that leaders can no longer rely on traditional authority alone. They must contend with an increasingly informed and mobilized population. The speed at which information travels now means that political crises can escalate in days, not months. As the world watches, one question remains. In this era of heightened scrutiny and swift change, who will be able to withstand the pressures of leadership, and who will be next to fall?